Hi, and welcome to Bululu Wellness, your guide to well-being. Here, we simplify health with practical and easy-to-use tools to help you live a healthier life. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Bululu Wellness, where we rebuild energy from the root, one episode and conversation at a time. In today's episode, I sit down with Dr. Bethany Tennant, and she's a naturopathic physician, a certified nutrition specialist, and a sports medicine practitioner working with athletes and active humans across all levels. We're going to be talking about how and what is integrative performance and really what it looks like. So, in reality, I want to have this conversation because I want to inspire younger athletes and people that have younger athletes and active individuals to really dive a little bit deeper into the integrative wellness. And this is why Dr. Bethany is going to help us understand this conversation. So, welcome, Dr. Bethany.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm so excited. So, for those who are meeting you for the very first time, tell me, who are you and what kind of work you do?
Sure. So, as a naturopathic physician and a certified nutrition specialist, I really focus on whole person care. I see patients in clinic in Portland, Oregon at two different locations, and my passion work is really supporting youth to professional athletes with their athletic performance with a whole person, whole athlete approach.
So, what inspired you to be? I mean, you're already a naturopathic doctor. What inspired you to be a certified nutrition specialist?
Ooh, I would say that I think my grandma was a really strong inspiration because she was the first person that would recommend a nutrient remedy for an ailment or a symptom. And she was one of the first really practicing taking supplements and really kind of created this curiosity. And she also cultivated that curiosity by gifting me books. I have the Vitamin Bible, I think I got in sixth grade, and then a prescription for nutritional healing. And I think that was an interesting way to start thinking about how the body works and how nutrition works with the body's healing systems.
I know that you were an athlete yourself. Can you share a little bit about what basketball meant to you and how that experience also shaped you as a practitioner?
Sure. So I grew up in a household. I have two older brothers and a younger sister. And I think the passion that my older brothers had for basketball really encouraged my own. So a lot of exposure to Michael Jordan and their posters and videos, trying to tag along with them at the playground and playing pickup. But it really created my own love for the game. I honestly probably liked soccer better initially, but I just didn't have as many opportunities to grow in the sport. So I just had I really feel like just the opportunities to do travel teams and camps and showcase and be able to play in college was such an incredible experience. In terms of how that has formed in some way that I'm a practitioner, I think I definitely recognize I'm a more of a team athlete. I think the individual sports make me more nervous, and I recognize that maybe personally I need to operate in that way. That's how I like operate best. And I think that at times it's just resonating with either my patients or clients who have a little bit more of an athletic mindset or athletic goals. I think it can be helpful to understand a little bit of the grind, what they're working through in terms of training or the season or understanding kind of what that mindset even is about.
Well, first of all, I will tell you that I was a Chicago Bulls fan. And two, I'm kind of biased because soccer is a little bit better, but that's just me. So, I mean, you mentioned that your grandma brought you that book and you being already inspired by her and nutrition. So, you looking back as a younger athlete in those athletic years, did you understand at that time, health, energy, recovery, fueling, or what did you wish that you understood when you were younger, I guess, now that you have the information as an adult?
That's a great question. I think recognizing individuality would be, I think following recommendations or, um, you know, the way that our team would have like a pregame meal and the way it was timed, but not really recognizing maybe for me what I needed to do to best fuel or what would work best for me might be something I'd do differently. And I I think that at that time when I was in high school, I do remember whenever I had, unfortunately, any teammates that would get sick or have an injury, I remember putting together a little like care package, but I would like research like what nutrients do they need to help. And here's okay, I hope you're, get better soon. And so I feel like that was something I had already started like cultivating. But that's probably what I would do differently is really certainly understanding the nuances and beyond just trends or sort of like team programming.
Yeah. When I was younger, I did a lot of everything, I would say. I wasn't a master of anything. I was in volleyball and then I was in theater and I just bounced around because I was trying to find an activity that I enjoyed mostly. I always often experience periods of tiredness, but it was like a weird tiredness. It was like this weird fatigue and sometimes heart palpitations. And then I realized that as an adult, I was probably experiencing a little bit of hypoglycemia because I was not fueling enough. Also,
Hmm.
I lived in a country where the bodies are like a thing, right? Being a girl and like a woman's body, you had to look a certain way, and I actually had a bigger body than my friends. So I was always really mindful. My brother was always on a diet, so I was always very mindful of what to eat. So I wish as a younger athlete, somebody would have been, had like a Meli and be like, you need to eat 2,500 calories, So that's
Yeah.
one of the things that I, as a younger person being active, wish that that could have happened for me.
Yeah. No, that's good. And that's probably a lot of female athlete experience, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to get into a little bit of a sticky arena, I think, because I love sports nutrition. I love performance nutrition. And one of the things that I've noticed the most is that sports nutrition, the field of sports and anything that has to do with performance nutrition is very, very conventional and very male dominated still. And also, very RD centered, like registered dietitians. So we are CNSs, you're naturopath. And so, what gaps do you see in that framework when you are out there in the field working or trying to do your work as a CNS that is a more integrative lens?
Yeah, I think this is a huge conversation. I think, like, at a broader sense, certainly more research needs to be done. I think there's starting to be initiatives around just supporting female athletes specifically. I think that is one kind of just general starting point is that, anything that's evidence-based information that we're using really is not including as many, assigned female at birth subjects. And so we need to kind of get more information about that as a starting point. I really think that conventional medicine in general does a really good job of sort of specializing, but that also really isolates and silos things. And I think where I see the biggest gap is that whole athlete approach or whole person approach. And so when someone is concerned about a skin presentation, they go see the dermatologist, and that dermatologist is not asking them about their gut symptoms, and then they might see, someone for their gut symptoms, and they're not connecting that, oh, they're flare-ups for their skin. And so that's a very simple example, I think that is very common, it's just that alone. I think that really thinking through body systems and cellular health, and then the area that I'm really interested in is sort of like movement, mitochondria, and the microbiome. And there's more and more research about how that, like how the interplay, the interconnectedness, and I think then how that reflects in the interconnectedness of how we treat patients and athletes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the same as you, I think that it should be definitely a whole athlete approach, just not, it has to be go, it really has to go beyond the macros, right? Like in the feeling charts and just simply the performance goals. Like I feel that there is a bit of a gap of the longevity of that person.
Yeah.
And to me, it's really important not only the fueling part, but how we regulating that nervous system. I mean, those bodies, I call everybody that is an athlete, to me, I call them also in trauma, because you are in
Mm,
such a high response and output. The same thing as a trauma person. You're always in this high stress,
mm.
sympathetic state, and how do you recover that body? And I'm more interested about how can I bring a body into that parasympathetic. And because I don't know if you notice this, but athletes, when they go into that parasympathetic, it almost brings them into this low depression, almost like a trauma person, or an addiction is a very interesting subject for me. So the more I
Yeah.
dive in, the more I'm so interested about how it regulate a nervous system in an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So, what are you interested in regards of the health of an athlete? What will be, if I were to say, okay, I'm gonna hire Dr. Bethany, what is going to be like that you're gonna bring on the table when it comes to an active person or athletics, or working with the younger athletes?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's the individualized care is a big part of it. So even at the highest level, there's often like a team support. So I think having an individual intake is so valuable. And what I mean by that is clearly understanding any sort of symptom screening, um, past medical history, anything that could be even, anxiety or what happens on during performance or while you're in competition, anything that you're noticing that might be different for you. Lots of times athletes are really in tune with their own bodies. And so they recognize like, this is a shift. This feels different. And I don't understand why. So I think that a really thorough individual intake, it, your question is really broad. So when I'm working with
Mhm.
like youth, I think I really just want to empower them to think about nutrition as their training, part of their training, and to create a healthy relationship with food beyond just calories in, calories out, to better understand how they're fueling, to pay attention a little bit to how it might be making them feel or think as their students in classrooms, and to just consider how they can almost like utilize that as opposed to just thinking about how it changes their body composition, but really thinking about how does this impact my immune system and how is this helping with my memory and cognition? How's this helping my sleep? Those are kind of like bigger takeaways. I have an acronym called Eat Like a Champ that I usually go through with the youth. And then when we're getting kind of more into the serious and elite, then we're really diving into um, figuring out a lot of those sort of biochemicals, so some of the testing that comes up and looking at nutrients. And I think for active adults that are patients, I often think about symptoms in the context of their life, and I think that really matters. So, if you're having disrupted sleep and experiencing fatigue, but also this is happening at the same time that your partner just had surgery or you relocated, something's happening at work, those all really matter too.
Yeah. So
I'm a
when
camel
you're seeing
fan.
an athlete running out of fumes, what nutritional deficiencies or patterns do you tend to see more often?
Yeah, in terms of like an energy component, I think my first line is really ruling out any deficiency. So iron deficiency, anemia, B12, checking thyroid, checking hydration. Those foundational things are also key. Are you fueling enough? Are you hydrating enough? Are you getting good sleep? Looking at the nutrient. And then we can kind of dive into if there's other components of either cortisol, like adrenal, or potentially looking more into kind of mitochondria or energy systems. So there's definitely kind of foundational and then steps into functional and kind of advanced workup that I would consider.
Yeah, and I know, we're not doing any personalized nutrition right now. Everybody that listens knows that. But do you think that there are, for you, any specific nutrients, minerals, or herbs that you consistently find helpful for performance and nervous system support?
Yeah, that always it depends. Right? That's the answer.
Yeah.
Depends on the person, depends on all the things. Lots of times it's just those like so many foundational things. I think in terms of the microbiome being such a major component in interconnecting. more and more we're seeing these relationships with the microbiome, and we refer to that as like the gut to whatever gut skin axis, gut brain axis. I've seen gut bone axis, gut mitochondria. So there's all this interconnectedness, bidirectional communication that really centers in the gut. So certainly checking in on symptoms and supporting. So a quality probiotic might be a good, starting point. And then yeah, I think there's kind of like those foundational things would be probably like multivitamin, vitamin D, maybe an omega-3, and then kind of go from there. And all of those are individual dependent too.
Yeah, and what you mentioned, I mean, like protecting the gut microbiome as much as possible, right? So diversifying foods as much as possible, because that's the other thing with the stressors as an athlete. There's so much gut issues going on. Or for me, I remember dancing 6 hours and not feeling hungry because
Mm-hmm.
my systems will shut down on me. So, and I didn't understand that until I started studying performance nutrition and how, my system was on stress. Therefore, my stomach and my hunger was just
Mm-hmm.
completely shut. So I was like, oh, this happened to me.
Yeah, and I think those are the kinds of conversations I do like having with individuals to kind of clarify. It's common to like not have an appetite after like a lot of intense training right away, but then we think about strategies to help like refuel, pardon me, and then to continue sort of like that recovery process. But navigating, how stress shows up for you and how you experience that in your body. For some people, it's more headaches, stomach aches, bathroom, going, loose stool, and so kind of figuring out those little strategies for those individuals is kind of the part that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. And I know in the world of fitness, performance nutrition, sports nutrition, there's a lot of items that people use, right? From aura rings to whoops to all the things. So everybody's trying to optimize their health. Have you found any really testing or functional testing or even devices that truly are beneficial? Because sometimes it can be a lot of marketing involved into these devices or functional testing. So is there anything that you have found that has been like, oh, this is actually pretty helpful?
Who do you wanna sponsor your podcast? Just kidding.
That's a great
Um,
one.
I would say when it comes to the devices, I'll start there. I think information can be helpful until it isn't, and so for a lot of athletes beneficial information can be things like heart rate variability, understanding stress, but if it's a race day and you see that you didn't sleep optimally and your kind of readiness or whatever marker is telling you about if that's going to impact, I wouldn't want to do it on like a competition or race day. If it's a game day or race day, to not use those if it's going to influence your mindset about how your body will be ready to compete. So I think outside of that, it can be really valuable because we can look at that sort of the biofeedback of, okay, I recognize when this is my night routine, this really helps with sleep. I'm realizing if I drink alcohol, if I take this, this is part of my recovery, this is when I seem to get the best restorative sleep. That's when it's useful. And then in terms of the functional testing, I think it can be really valuable. I don't think it's always the one thing and the one answer. I think having a strategy and exploring when it seems like warranted. So what I mean by that is lots of times it's foundational things first. So starting with comprehensive blood work gives us a lot of information to start with. If that doesn't seem like enough, and depending on the person, depending on symptoms and context, looking at things like patterns. So things like cortisol patterns or hormone breakdown. Beyond that, if there's other things that might be at play. So I've had some athletes too where eventually we get to something like a mycotoxin screening or heavy metals. And it seems like, and that's actually what's going on. But I usually don't just jump there unless there's something that was like some symptom or situation that seemed strongly indicated that seemed more warranted than anything else that's foundational.
Yeah, I find it interesting in any device that, tells you your readiness and your HRV is how it truly affects your day. I will wake up and just open my phone and see, ooh, how much sleep I got, or how much readiness I have for today, and honestly will influence my day. It
Mm.
just gets
Mhm.
me. I'm like, no, I
Mm.
didn't sleep that well. My workouts are not gonna be that powerful today. I start
Aw.
going in
Yeah.
my head. So it's very interesting, and for people to be aware of how that could influence. And it's a device. It's not perfect either, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What age do you believe that athletes should be starting to learn about recovery, nourishment, nervous system support?
I think really basic information can be helpful. I think I've I've done some speaking to different teams and programs and camps, and I think 3rd grade might be kind of the one of the younger groups that I've talked to. And really that again is just to encourage them to think about how I guess the way that I think about it, oftentimes the analogy is that your body is like a vehicle and you put gas in it. But I say like that analogy is actually not a good one because there's nothing like the human body. It would only be accurate if when you put gas in the car, the gasoline became the steering wheel and became the tires, and to understand that like it actually is what then is used by your body to make your body parts. And I think just sort of those the simple takeaway of understanding that, eating more vegetables or drinking more water and how that can support how your body works and how your brain works. And you're thinking about yourself as an athlete and as a student and just wanting to be as healthy as you can be. So that would probably be just from my own experience. I say like, 3rd grade was as a nutrition kind of talk, or even just understanding how sleep. But in terms of thinking about it for athletic performance, I definitely think, if someone is if they're taking their sport seriously and they want to get better, then there's a little bit more of a readiness for that information. And so probably middle school, what might it comes to mind. But do you have thoughts on an appropriate age?
I've seen in different countries academies that kids are already in a little kitchen cooking their meals and
Uh,
fueling themselves, which is, I thought it was beautiful that showing them how to make a smoothie for themselves or what is a high protein meal. And I've seen it as early as around 8 to 9 years old.
mhm.
So I thought it was beautiful. Do you ever see a world like that? I thought it was like it's mostly academies. It's not happening in the schools, but mostly in
Mm,
academies where they're training specifically for soccer or sports that
mhm.
parents want their kids to be into pros. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I am reminded. I've done a few workshops that weren't even athlete specific, but just for kind of kids. And we did, like making a meal together. And I think that can be really helpful to have more of, yeah, workshop experience to help with cutting up sweet potatoes and making fries. And I think that was something that we did at that time. And also with younger groups, I've done kind of like I call it a trainer's table where you're basically kind of a buffet of things for them to try. And then we have a conversation. So, smoothie workshops, those types of things. I think those are all helpful to have a little bit more of involvement, engagement, and connection to food, nutrition. And I always think, even if you don't become pro, you're gonna need to fuel yourself for the rest of your life or think about what that might be for you or your future family. And so I think it's always like valuable information even beyond what you use it for sport.
Do you have any messages for parents that actually have young athletes or active kids, advice, messaging? Because I've had those conversations, right? I sit down with the parent and the young athlete, and then I'm telling them what to eat, but then the parents think that they should be eating the same. So it's a little bit complicated when the parent is the one prepping their meals, or sometimes
Of
parents
course.
don't understand how much food this person needs to eat versus them. So
Yeah,
you have any
that's true.
messages for them?
That's a great thought. I think sometimes when I'm working with younger athletes, I'm just reinforcing some of the parents' recommendations that they just need to hear from someone else. So when it comes to eating more vegetables and, fueling, I definitely would encourage a way of having like a healthy relationship around food. And so not focusing on, this is going to help you lose weight or gain weight, but framing it in a way of, yeah, fueling or nourishing your body or um, paying attention to cues about feeling hungry, feeling full. I think sometimes with parents, we're also just being creative. And so, how to hide extra veggies in a marinara sauce or throw the spinach in the smoothie. And so, it really depends. It's really quite the spectrum of what the care intervention can look like. But I really think emphasizing a healthy relationship with food, being curious and kind of experimenting in varieties and trying things, encouraging kids to try things can sometimes be helpful. And then certainly, yeah, understanding that their nutrition needs might be very different from the rest of the family, depending on how active and what they're doing in their, you know, sport.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things I think is for a parent to realize, oh my gosh, I need to cook a little bit more or have other healthier snacks in the house
Mm.
available. So let's
Just
move
a
on
different
from younger and let's go to regular people that are active. Regular active individuals like you
Yeah.
and me, maybe. Is there a piece of advice, the gym goer, marathon once a year, I don't know, people that are just active that might be listening and they're just tired? It's not your regular individual. These are not sedentary people. These are people that are really active, but they just feel tired and they don't seem to understand what could be happening. Where is a good point to start with their health and how to make them do like a more integrative approach or care for their health?
Yeah, I would say I see a lot of patients with fatigue as one of the kind of chief concerns. And so there's so many potential causes to something like fatigue, even if you are active and training. So, always starting with foundations. If you're not sleeping well, that certainly can impact your energy during the day. And for some people, that's really where we're starting. So, that might look like disrupted sleep because of pain. It might be because getting up to go to the bathroom, it might be because of hot flashes or night sweats. So, that would be really like the root thing to be supporting to help with the sleep picture. And then I think sort of the initial lab work again is where I start just because those are the such easy things to understand as part of a working diagnosis or to treat. And so looking at things like iron deficiency, B12 and folate, assessing thyroid, and potentially a cortisol, and then kind of going from there. So I think in general, again, foundations, making sure you're hydrated. I think even that alone, especially during winter months and cooler states, that can be something that is sort of underestimated how it can impact the body and energy. And then beyond that, I would say like functional testing, looking into things like metabolomics would be sort of a direction I would consider doing for workup and really helping with how the body creates energy and these energy systems and ways that we can be really specific with supporting that. So that's a little bit of kind of my strategy approach to the fatigue component.
I love
Blood
that.
sugar too. Sorry, I know you mentioned that earlier. Certainly blood sugar balancing and screening for that too, and then kind of going from there.
All right. So starting with regular lab work, but also requesting that ferritin, iron, all the good markers of iron, because I feel like that is being missing lately. And definitely your glucose. I love that. I love every recommendation because it's so doable, right? And especially for people that are always maybe budget is tight and they do have insurance. So there's like basic things that we can do that doesn't require that much
Absolutely.
money. Hmm.
Yeah, I'll add to that too. I think last times I experienced patients having frustration with getting labs even, which is sometimes it's surprising to me, but I just want to encourage people to you can advocate for yourself to get information about your body and lab work could be one of those things you ask for and just requesting, I'm really curious about iron and ferritin. Can we run that? They might if a provider doesn't run that, or if they don't think your insurance will cover it, that might be part of the, like, workaround, but you certainly have the ability there's options of finding ways to get information about your body ultimately, and those are really it's like very low-hanging fruit in terms of supporting your body systems that can make a significant difference in how people feel.
Yeah.
So I'm such an advocate for getting the labs that you want.
I agree with you. And sometimes people don't realize, but there are companies like LabCorp or I believe Quest. They might have what they call on demand, where you can go to the lab and pay. I mean, it's a little bit out of pocket, but a ferritin and an iron test is not that expensive. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the challenge might be then how to like interpret or what to do with that information. But I really think having iron, ferritin, I think a full thyroid panel is a really important starting point if fatigue is your biggest concern.
There you go. She's giving you a consultation, a free consultation on a podcast to get those labs done. I love this. Dr. Bethany, what has been the lessons that being an athlete and a doctor taught you about resiliency?
Ooh, that is such a good question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is my experience playing basketball in college. That it's so my I was a scholarship player, but my freshman year, I remember one away game that everyone on the team played except for me. I was the only player that didn't get any minutes. And I remember being so crushed and being on that like bus on the way home. And I remember a coach just giving me a little bit of encouragement, and that was, like, all I needed to keep going. And I think about that time of feeling so discouraged, and certainly we all have different experiences of feeling like we're doing this well, and then you kinda get into a different environment, and you're like, "Oh, this is there's levels to this." And I remember then in my junior year was, like, a captain and starter, and just knowing that there's often a process, there's often a learning curve, and I think there's something about being patient with doing the work. And in those moments where it feels really difficult, I remember calling my mom in college crying about organic chemistry being so hard. Like, I was like, I can't do this. And then, like overcoming those small little things to build resilience of those challenges and knowing that they're not forever and that you just got to continue to do those small steps to get to eventually where you're hoping to go. So, those are, I guess, a few examples of my experience of kind of the training to be a doctor and of being an athlete at a time that, yeah, that was like the goal to play in college and then kind of navigating that experience.
I think that's a beautiful message to close today because a lot of us think that by taking the supplement or by doing this, you get immediate results, right? And you see it in the world of sports, you see it in the world of being a doctor, and how it's baby steps that you get to that finish line. And so it's a really good encouraging message for somebody out there that is trying to figure out their health or is trying to figure out why are they not performing correctly, or going to the gym every day and I'm not seeing that body composition changes. So that's a really good message. Thank you. Where can listeners find you and learn more about you or working with you?
Great. So I'm on social media, Dr. Bethany Tennant. My website is also Dr. Bethany Tennant. And while I do see patients in person at To Be Well, a natural family health clinic in Portland, Oregon, I work with active and athletes from all over through natural sports medicine, which is my online practice. So those are the best ways to connect and reach out. And I'd love to support your journey in any way that I can.
Awesome. Love it. I'm going to put all your information in the podcast notes. And thank you so, so much for taking the time on your busy schedule to chat with me and just inspire us to just continue going further and further with baby steps.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
If you enjoy what you hear, subscribe and share it with someone who might need it. The more people join us, the closer we get to building a wellness community for everyone. Thank you for being here. Now let's navigate this bululu together. This podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any condition or disease. If you need help, please seek professional care.